See. Hey, can you guys hear me? Cool. Yeah, I did watch. I did watch Strange New Worlds. Hey, just a minute. I gotta go get some more coffee. Hi, Matt. Jake. So Jeffrey, what do you do that you were working all night? Not that it's any of my business. Just curious. Cool. Uh, sounds like I love airplanes and aviation and anything that goes on in airports has always fascinated me. So and that's cool. You never think of someone being a pipeline operator at an airport. And yes, Jeffrey, the derailment cleanup has been quite the fiasco. They're still not. They've still done nothing else with it. It's still everything's still sitting in the same place it was. Yeah, I've heard nothing else about it. I have the phone numbers for the guy that was running the project for culture, but I'm not going to call him and bug him about it. And he's probably not the one who makes the decisions anyway. So when they get back up there, they'll get back up there. need something exciting to happen again. My videos really aren't doing very well. Not very many people have been watching them. I don't know what the deal is, but oh well, I'll keep making them anyway. Hello, Timothy. Oh, that deal in Reedley, California. Is that what you're talking about? Up here just north of us, Brian? If that's what you're talking about, I heard about it. I didn't read the story. It was late last night when it popped up. Yeah, not too bad. Reedley's a nice little town. If you saw the piece I did on the old Southern Pacific East Side branch, I did a piece from Reedley. It went right through there. So the Kings River goes through. Got a bunch of beaches there, but it's doing really well right now. I guess it's all right. Yeah, well, I've said before that SP was a familial and a pretty cool place to work, but it was yeah. I was actually glad when UP took over. I didn't have to worry about getting laid off or bumped or the company going broke anymore. SP was a very stressful place to work because you never knew if you were going to have a job the next day, or at the very least, you never knew if you were going to be working in the same place the next day. I got bumped around so many times in the last 5 years. SP was around that I almost quit. I almost took a job with American Signal Technologies, who was doing the work on the. They took over all the branch lines up here in the valley, and I knew a couple of SP guys who did just that, who left and went to work for them, and didn't make as much money, but they had a lot of other perks. It was a pretty good deal, and I almost did it. And I think it would have worked out for me, but yeah, SP was getting really sketchy towards the end. Yeah, suffering Pacific. I was really about the size of it. It was sketchy. Towards the end, a couple of times they gave us vouchers instead of paychecks, and it was up to your bank as to whether or not they accepted them. Mine did, and they made good on them. The company did, but yeah, it was sketchy at the end. And forgive me for bouncing back and forth. My eyes just keep getting worse. Yeah, in was it late April, I guess, right after the SEMA derailment actually happened just outside Kelso, but we were on a Harley ride and we went by there. The Kelso Depot was closed because of HVAC problems, so we didn't get to go in there that day. But yeah, they had. I was amazed. They had that pretty much all cleaned up. I mean, it was easy for them to get to and everything, but and all on railroad property, which was a lot different than the Tehachapi derailment. But yeah, there were still a couple of the cars that they had gotten out of the way yet. But yeah, I was amazed. I expected to see a bunch of carnage with it kind of being out in the middle of nowhere, but They had it all cleaned up. The track department was out there working on the tracks at the near the site. I didn't know exactly where it happened, but the track department was out there working. Um, MRPC 5971, welcome. When Union Pacific took over Southern Pacific, they gave all the employees, all the agreement employees, 200 shares of stock at $55 a share with an 8-year term where they would, at 8 years, you either had to sell the stock back to the company or buy it yourself at $55 a share. And after 8 years, it was only at $77 a share. And like an idiot with no foresight, whatever, I decided to just go ahead and sell it rather than paying the difference between $55 a share and $77 a share. That's it was I was such an idiot. And it kind of stayed there for a while, but eventually it split twice. And the first time it split was at about $130 a share, and it was I think it was a 2-for-1 split, and it split again after that. I stopped following it because I was so mad at myself. God, if I would have kept that, it would be worth a considerable amount of money today. But I didn't. Yeah, Brian, when UP took over, one of the first things they did on the Tehachapi was get rid of the wood ties, replace them with concrete ties. And one of the things they did is in the tunnels, they put steel ties, and that caused all kinds of problems. And steel ties, uh, I guess they worked in some other places, but boy, they didn't work up there. The insulating chairs that they used to set the rails on wore out quickly, and there were always problems. They eventually took them out, and now they have wood ties in the tunnels. And they SP did ribbon rail on the mountain back in the 80s when I went up there, and I started working up there in 84, and they started putting ribbon rail in. They had already started putting ribbon rail in, and over the years, I think that was 136 pounds that they were putting in back then. But yeah, they got that. That was all completed under Southern Pacific, the ribbon rail up there. They did do one thing that Union Pacific knew how to do was make money, and they didn't mind spending money. As long as it was on Southern Pacific, just blew money. They wasted money, and that's why they were always in the position they were in. And Union Pacific wasn't like that. They were very structured about how money was spent. But as the maintenance foreman who was responsible for ordering all the material for my guys on my district, not once did they ever say, no, you can't have that. There were times that they called and said, why do you need this? This is a big ticket item. And I would explain, and they would either say, okay, or sometimes it was, well, how about we got a couple of extra of these down in Los Nietos or over at the coast or something. How about you take some these widgets over there and trade for those widgets and bring them. We did that. Actually, that was pretty common. Hang on. One of the cats. Come on. This is Gidget, my daughter Chrissy. adopted her when she was 3 days old. The only reason I told her she could keep hers, I didn't think she'd survive. There she is, spawn of Satan. Yeah, Jeffrey, we have 4. I like cats though. I don't think we need 4 of them, but oh well, we have them. And that one, if you close the door, Gidget will sit there and whine and yowl until you open it and let her in. She just wants to come in and see. She's already gone. Yeah, crazy cat lady. Yeah, Brian, you're talking about the noise with the jointed rail. On Tehachapi, it was never really a thing because the trains are going so slowly. But I remember in a couple of places in my early days, they were noisy. Not just the trains hitting them, but the joints were always coming loose and they rattled and everything. When I first went to work in '79, they were upgrading the ribbon rail on the Palmdale cutoff where we were doing the signal work. It was my understanding that was done in 1967. That line was built. It was my understanding that they put ribbon rail in it back then. I don't remember if there were a bunch of joints or not. All I did was dig ditches and run machines on that project. So I really don't remember, but I know that they upgraded. The ribbon rail they were putting in when I was there was like 119. It was still pretty small rail, and then the ribbon rail up the valley was 115 and 119. It's all been upgraded to 136 and 141 now. Hello, good morning, Robert Ellis from West Virginia. Welcome. I'm glad you enjoy the content. Yeah, well, if you ever get out here to California, you can be around Tehachapi, let me know. Take you out and show you some cool places. As long as I'm not really old by then. Billy Drury, good morning. Welcome. We'll wait a little bit more for I really start getting into some of the things that I had written down to talk about with you folks. We're going to do that again. I think that's going to end up, Brian, as far as the signal thing. They want to start doing that once a month. That was the idea of a guy up there named Phil Patterson. I went out. If we get a large group of people, or if someone just requests to see if they'll work and I'm on duty, I'll take them out there and show them how they all work. But Phil said he'd been there for a few years and had never seen them operate because I did that one day. And he said, "Hey, what would you think about doing this?" And the board that operates those signals is pretty self-explanatory, but I'm really the only one who knows what all the signals mean. And my wife came up with a really good idea to make a sheet to keep in the house, in the signal, in the shack where they control the signals, about what all those signals mean. And I think I'm going to do that because I think it would be good for other people to know that, and then take little photographs or something and put them by each above each control where the switches are to let them know what those signals look like in case they don't. Another guy came up with that idea. But yeah, Phil said that he counted over 70 people who were out there watching that go on. So it was pretty popular and well received. And I had a few people come up and tell me that they had seen, I put it on my Facebook, the depot had it on their Facebook, had a short on my channel. And I had a few people come up and say that they had seen those on the various Facebook pages. And that's why and a lot of those people just came up just to see that demonstration rather than to actually visit the depot, which most of them ended up visiting the depot. We had over 100 visitors that day, and that was really cool. It's always cool to see a lot of people come in. Jeffrey Goslin, yeah, I'd recommend a career with the railroad. You hear a lot of people who are disgruntled with the railroad today, but it's still a good job. Every industry is moving away from the way things have been traditionally done, but it's not just the railroad that's changing. But yeah, they're good careers. They pay well. You have a lot of benefits. I would recommend the signal department. If you're single, or if you don't like your wife, operating the train departments, those jobs pay a lot of money, but you're just gone all the time. You live out of a suitcase. I never wanted to do that, but the signal department's a good job. As I said, good pay, good benefits, and a great pension. You stick it and just stick with it. And I've always recommended anybody to these people I hear complaining about the railroad. Man, if you don't like your job, quit and go find something you do like, because the easiest way to make yourself miserable in your life is to convince yourself that you hate your job. Find something you enjoy doing. I love being in the signal department. I didn't love the railroad. That wasn't my thing. I didn't love Southern Pacific or Union Pacific, but I loved being a signalman. I loved signal work. It was fun. It was challenging. It was always evolving. And the railroad spent a ton of money sending me all over the country for training. It was, yeah, I do recommend these jobs. Don't listen to the naysayers. They're still good jobs. And as I said, any industry you go into now, that's what you're going to run into a lot of the problems that you hear people complain about the railroad. You're going to run into those anywhere. People in the oil industry who are doing terribly right now. People are losing their jobs right and left. Aviation industry, it's all over the place. Swollen sausage. Oh, yeah, it's going okay. I actually haven't been up shooting any videos. It's been way too hot to do that. It's going to be hot again this weekend, especially tomorrow. I think it's in Bakersfield. It's supposed to be 105 tomorrow, and in the mid 90s in Tehachapi. And I don't like going out shooting videos in that kind of weather. I'd rather go out in a snowstorm. But yeah, it's going okay. Seems to be about as busy as usual. But yeah, I have to, and I've been busy doing some other things as well, and played golf yesterday and the day before. It's cooled off a little bit, but it's going to fire up again for 3 days and get cooled off. But it's going okay. No derailments, nothing exciting. Aunt Flynn, it's always enjoy visiting. You say, Aunt, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the channel. Yeah, if you come over and you're going to be in this area, let me know. Yeah, I'm sure you saw the videos I put up with. Now he's my kind of my friend Stephen from London. Stayed with us 3 nights the last time he was here. We had a really good time. Brian, I don't even know what super chats are, to be honest with you. All right, Jeffrey, get some rest. Thanks for checking in with us. Good to talk to you. Take care. Tennessee Pass. No, I don't know where that is, but I never worked on it. I only worked on what was the old called the old San Joaquin Division and part of the SEMA sub at one time. And so I worked between Merced, California, up in the San Joaquin Valley, and Highland, which is a station, a siding that's at the top of Cajon Pass out near Victorville. And then I worked on the SEMA sub for 3 years, was also part of my territory, and that was from Daggett to Las Vegas. Brian, I all I tell people as far as helping out is just whatever you can afford. I can't really. I've never thought about an annual thing. Hang on a second, but it's like, I don't know. I really don't know. Whatever you can do to help. It doesn't matter. Whatever you can afford. Whether it's, I don't care if it's $10 or $10,000. Well, 10,000 would be really nice, but yeah, it doesn't matter, bud. Whatever works for you works for me. And if you'll get mentioned on every piece that I put up at the end of the videos as an anonymous supporter. Fillmore to June Lake, that's quite a drive or ride if you were I don't know if you were in a car or on a motorcycle, but that's a good drive. Are you Swollen Sausage? Are you from the Fillmore or Ventura area? And thanks for the compliment. I try to make things more interesting than just trains going by. I always tell people, if that's what you like watching, there's a channel called Spencer Hughes 2258, I think, and that guy does awesome. His stuff is awesome. A lot of cool aviation stuff, military aviation stuff from Star Wars Canyon, but really, really high quality stuff. And but it's just trains and planes going by. If I took the time to get all the way out to Star Wars Canyon and was doing videos of those jets flying by, I'd be jumping out of my, I'd be jumping up and down and hollering and saying how cool, how people can see that stuff and not react to it vocally. I've only Billy Drury. The only stuff I've ever done in Colorado was when I went up there at the beginning of 2022, and I drove up through up I-25 from New Mexico up to Colorado and to Denver, and I caught a couple of really cool trains up there, but I didn't get up into any interesting places. I was going to go up to the Moffat Tunnel. When I left Denver, I spent a few days up there visiting my daughter, but there had just been a big storm, and the guy there in Central City said that it was a dirt road from Central City up to the tunnel, and he said he wasn't sure of the condition with all the snow they'd had. Snow was mostly gone by then, but he said the road could get pretty sketchy going up there, so I didn't do that. Yeah, Brian, that's what I heard, that they had an accident there and slowed things down. I've never been out there. I've been out in Panamint Valley quite a bit. We That's how we ride the Harleys over to Beatty, and then whenever we go to Vegas, if we're coming home on a Sunday, we always come the back way rather than dealing with all the traffic on Interstate 15. We just go up through Pahrump, Death Valley, and up through Trona and come home that way. It takes about an hour longer, but it's relaxing. There's no traffic. But that's where when the planes exit Star Wars Canyon, they come out that way. So I've seen a lot of planes just going by at low altitude at speed, but not through the canyon. Yeah, Wonder Hussey Turf. Yeah, I guess she is out there living in Death Valley or something. I really haven't watched much of her stuff. I haven't watched any of her stuff in quite some time. But yeah, she and I had an email thing going back and forth a couple of years ago for a while about some specific deals, and she seems to be pretty cool. But I don't watch any other channels a lot because I just don't have time. I don't watch much TV. I'm busy doing the channel, and I've got a lot of other history stuff I get involved in. I play golf a lot. I stay pretty busy, and so when I have the chance to relax, I just relax. And usually doesn't involve TV. Oh, Tacopa. I saw that one of the deals on her Instagram. It made it sound like she was in Death Valley. Maybe I just misunderstood. But Tacopa's not much better than Death Valley. I've never actually been to Tacopa. I've been up in that area quite a lot. Up 120, is it 121? Is that the road that goes from Baker up into Death Valley? But yeah, I've never been out there. I was going to do a piece on the history of the Tonopah Tidewater, but I haven't gotten around to it, and I don't know. People don't tend to watch a lot of those. A lot of people don't tend to watch those videos, so that's a lot of work and a lot of distance. Elkins Ranch, no. Is that in Southern California? It's the only place I've ever played golf really outside of Southern California or in the Las Vegas area and I played up in Central California a couple of times, but I played in Vegas, and I played in Colorado, a few courses up there around Denver, and I played in St. George, Utah. Well, I love my dirt bikes, and I still ride. I don't race anymore, but hey, you would think I like breaking myself and in fairness, I really I broke both femurs on dirt bikes, 1975 and 2000. I broke my ankle in 1976, and I broke a couple of ribs, and I've had a couple of concussions over the years. But I've broken a lot more bones than that. I got injured, broke both my feet at the same time playing softball one time, and yeah, I beat myself up pretty good doing all kinds of things. It's now when I go ride the dirt bikes, go with my grandson, and I just putt around. I don't try to do things I'm not absolutely certain I can do. And used to, it's like, I think I can do that. Oh, that Mojave, that was what was it? Camelot. Yeah, Camelot, I think, was the old 9-hole course in Mojave. I didn't start playing golf till I was 55, so I never played out there. But I remember I remember seeing it back in the day, and I haven't been out there since it closed. Bernard Bunny. Oh, SP guy, started in 69, went to the NWP in 76. Yeah, I'll bet the NWP would have been a cool road to work on, a cool line. It was a beautiful area. Yeah, that would have been, was, look back, I didn't know much about the NWP while I was still working, but as later I started getting into history of different roads and stuff, and that looked almost envious of the people who got to work in places like that. Yeah, we were just talking before you came on. For me, UP was a good thing. It was a very good thing, but didn't work out for some people who were working on lines that got essentially shut down. But working up the valley and over the mountain, that was never an issue here. Sliding into third base. I hit the deck too late and hit the base really hard. And yeah, that was no good. They were small fractures. The most painful one was on my left foot, and that was because I actually damaged some of the cartilage between two of the metatarsals, or whatever the heck your foot bones are called, and that was painful. That hurt for a long time. The feet actually healed up pretty quickly. Brian, I really, really want to go back and do the Durango Silver and the Georgetown Loop and the Cumbres and Toltec, or Toltec and Cumbres, whatever. I would love to do those. My daughter no longer lives in Denver, so there's no reason for me to go there other than to do touristy stuff. But I would really like to do those at some point. And the two times that I went up to visit her, the first time I went up to visit her, I didn't have the channel yet. That was in 2016. And then when I went up there in 2022, they had just had, like I said, that big storm, and nothing was open. All three of those. I wouldn't have been able to do the Toltec one because it was a long way out of my way, but I could have done Durango and I could have done Georgetown, but they were both closed at the time. Swan sausage. I was safe. Yeah, I was safe. And in the end, I probably didn't even need to slide. I just misinterpreted what the third base coach was telling me to do. I actually pulled a quadricep playing softball once too. I was always very fast. I could run like the wind when I was young. And when I went around third base one time, I lost my footing, and when I went to catch myself, I pulled my quadricep. And while it wasn't horribly painful, it put me out of service for a while. Thankfully, I worked for a guy at the railroad at the time. My foreman was up. We got along really well. And he said, Doug, I took a few days off because I just really couldn't walk on it. He said, come on in, man. Come on in. We'll work something out. And I ended up just kind of sitting in the truck doing his paperwork for him for another week while I got better. That was the same foreman that he was my foreman when I turned 21. That was before I got laid off. And I turned 21 on a Wednesday. And my sister and I share the same birthday. We're a year apart, but we were born on the same day. When I got home, so I lived in Tehachapi back when Tehachapi was really a small town. And I never locked my door. And I got home. My sister had already invited a bunch of people over, and there was already a party going on. And I had drank some beer before I left Palmdale. And I didn't go to sleep that night. And when I got back to Palmdale the next morning, I just went in and told my foreman, was a guy named Greg Smith, I'll be out at the truck. And I went out and I got in the truck, and when the next thing I knew, I woke up. It was a crew cab type big boom truck, and I was in the back seat. When I woke up and looked out, it was like 10:30 in the morning, and everybody's out working. I was like, oh no! And I got out, and Greg came up. He says, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Feel like working?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I turned 21 once too. Don't make this a habit." Swollen sausage? No, no, I haven't seen a video of people jumping on and off trains. You know what? I don't watch any of those videos. I don't watch hobo shoestring. Uh, that stuff doesn't interest me. It doesn't. I would much rather watch. If I want to watch Daredevils, I'd much rather watch freestyle, dirt bike riding, X Games, stuff like that. That stuff that's more interesting to me than watching people who might. These guys in X Games, they might get killed, but chances are those break their legs or something. I don't have any interest in watching somebody do something that's so dangerous. And in today's world, I don't know. I don't think that people should be doing that stuff. Kids see that stuff, and who knows what they might try. I don't know. That's just the way I feel about it. Geo79, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the videos. The retirement age for the railroad. They have a 30-60, which if you have 30 years of service, you turn 60, which I did, you can retire at 60 with your benefits, and they give you what's called a gap insurance plan, which is plenty to cover doctor's appointments and prescriptions and stuff like that. In my case, I got the first thing that happened after a couple of months after I graduated was I damaged my shoulder and had to have that repaired. And then I got COVID, and while I was in the hospital, my insurance ran out. That gap plan caps at around $100,000. So you have to be aware of that. And then, but you can work as long as you like. At 65, you can go off on Medicare, and that's what will happen to me. I ended up, after COVID, I ended up I had to buy my own insurance plan, but it's discounted. It's a little cheaper because it's a railroad employee thing, but it's not. I should say it's less expensive than some others, but it isn't cheap. But yeah, you can retire. You can go at 60 and get your full pension. And when I turn 65, I'll automatically go on to Medicare, and railroad employees get a different Medicare plan than other, just your people who work in other jobs. I guess it's a lot more streamlined and has a little bit better benefits, and the Part D is a little cheaper. So, the guys that I know that are using it don't have any problems with it. Yeah, Brian, I watched a little bit of, I did watch a little bit YouTube clips of some of the X Games stuff. That stuff. I certainly never attempted anything like that on my dirt bikes on purpose. I did some of that stuff accidentally and usually didn't land on my wheels. Transferred to Tucumcari, New Mexico. Holy cats, that is out in the middle of nowhere. But probably better than Colton. Colton is a fascinating place. The yard there is, one of my early videos on my channel is a day I spent going around the Colton yard showing how the retarders and the hump work. But that was before I had my channel, and I filmed it shot it in a vertical format because it was for my Facebook. And that's the video that when I put that on my Facebook, one of my youngest daughter, who still lived at home at the time, said, "Oh, that's really cool, Dad. You should get a YouTube channel." I didn't know you could didn't know you could do that. she had one about putting on makeup and doing her hair and stuff, and so she showed me how to do it, and that's when I started my channel. Brian, no. I generally didn't do things I wasn't relatively certain I could do. And I can remember the first big double I ever hit. I wasn't sure if I could do it. It was, I don't know, probably about I don't know, 50, 55 feet, something like that. But I did it. And it was like, hey, it really wasn't that hard. And I didn't race on many tracks that had triples. I was always a sportsman. I was never a pro. And there were only a couple. Elsinore had a triple, and one of the tracks at LACR had a triple. And I never did the one at Elsinore because that track was so sketchy. The old Elsinore track, I hated it. And I only raced there when I was in a series that utilized that track. But I did the one at LACR was not that big, and so yeah, I wasn't a daredevil on my dirt bike. I just liked riding and racing. Yeah, walking on top of double stacks, walking on top of a moving train there's a reason it's against the rules. Jeff Wadlow, memories. I have tears. We talking what's that? What's that about? Yeah, there's probably a lot of traffic. You probably get a lot of traffic in Tucumcari. I would imagine that is the Sunset Route. That would seem to be a pretty busy line. Is it? Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry to hear about your father's loss or the loss of your father. Which railroad did he work for? Yeah, Brian, I've been to a couple of Star Trek conventions. They had one here in Bakersfield back in the '90s, and then I went to one down in LA somewhere uh, around 2000 or something like that. Yeah, they were fun. Yeah, Jeff SP, that's who I hired out with. Well, there don't seem to be a lot of people on here. I'm going to go over a couple of things, and while I'm talking, just if you have questions, just jump in. Um, someone, let's see, Geo79 talking about the traffic out in Tucumcari. Uh, always tell people on the Tehachapi, if you want to rail Tehachapi, don't go on Mondays. That's maintenance day. Not always. Sometimes they don't do anything and they do run trains, but generally they reserve Mondays for track maintenance, signal testing, and things like that. So they don't run a lot of trains until later in the afternoon, 4 or 5, after everybody has cleared up. Swollen Sausage, just what I was going to get to. The average train traffic between Bakersfield and Mojave is 30 to 35 trains every 24 hours. But that doesn't mean you're going to go up there and see a steady stream of traffic. You might not see, I tell people, you might see 10 trains in 2 hours and you might see 2 trains in 10 hours. It just depends on how they line them up. There's no schedule. Whenever trains are ready to go, they go. Traffic on Cajon Pass, extremely busy. Just like Tehachapi, you essentially have the same traffic on Cajon as you do on Tehachapi, but you also have the BNSFs and the UPs coming across from Barstow on the BNSF. They'll come down the Cajon that way too. So you actually get, and they don't run a lot of trains UP on that line, but they do run some. So you catch those as well. But one of the talk about some of the future projects I have. One of the things that I'm gonna do a slideshow. I have a slideshow coming up that I just finished editing. That's just going to be pictures. It's just pictures of places I worked and people I worked with, and I think it's about 12 or 13 minutes long. It's not very long, but I'm going to do one about a slideshow of derailments that not only that I've worked and that I took pictures of, but derailments through history. People talk about derailments, especially after the East Palestine derailment, like there's something new, or like they have more derailments today than they historically have had, and that's just not true. They've been putting trains on the ground. I literally lost count of the number of derailments I worked in my career, most of them on the Tehachapi, some of them up the valley. And when I was working on the SEMA sub, I don't recall us ever having a derailment out there. Didn't run a lot of trains out there. But yeah, they've been putting them on the ground. They put them on the ground when they were short. They put them on the ground when they're long. Derailments are nothing new. And you can go dig up statistics that tell you that, well, they've had so many train derailments since 2000. I had a debate with a guy about that. And it's like, the PSR didn't start until relatively recently. So that just tells you that all the way back to the beginning of that thing that he sent me, they've been having these derailments for a long time. Derailments are nothing new. Most of them people don't hear about because they happen in remote places. They don't do a lot of damage and no one is killed. So you just don't hear about them unless there's some kind of carnage. And I told people after East Palestine, this will change the way things are going to change anything. And I told them then, this is the flavor of the month, and in a month you won't hear any more about this. And I was right. The oldest train I've ever been on, Jeff Wadlow. I guess that would be, there's a railroad up by Yosemite called the Sugar Pine Rail. It's an old logging railroad, and they had an old Shea locomotive that they used on that, and it's a tourist thing now. My ex-wife and I did that about 20 years ago, maybe longer ago than that. And so as far as that, that's the oldest train that I ever rode on. I rode on the UP Officer Special a couple of times. It had it was being pulled by one of the Centennial locomotives, the big 2 locomotives in one diesel thing. But some of those cars have been beautifully restored, but they're old. So I don't know. That's probably about it. Hello, Timothy Kennard. You are welcome. Yeah, Brian. Yeah, it gets hot every summer. You're right, especially in Bakersfield. We've broken no records. All of the records in Bakersfield, all of the heat records in Bakersfield were set between 1900 and 1930. Cal parts. Smoke Shandy 99. I would love to go over to Cuesta and get some trains. But like you said, getting to see a train over there is pretty rare other than Amtrak. And that is it's not a long way. Cuesta is only a couple hours away from me, but it's hard to get access. I would have to be in touch with someone. I know a couple of the guys over there, and I would have to coordinate all that with them. And then who knows you sit up there for 10 hours and see a few Amtrak's. That's just not worth the trouble. Yeah, 111 and Needles. That's not unusual. My wife and I took that vacation in April up to. We went up into Arizona and I stopped and did a piece on Needles. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it was 100 degrees that day in Needles in April. I don't mind 100 degrees. I haven't played golf the last couple of days. It was in the high 90s the day before, and it was in mid 90s yesterday when we finished, not when we started. I don't mind that. I used to go out after work when I was still working and play golf if it was under 100 degrees. And I worked in it my whole life. I worked in that kind of heat. I worked out in 120 degree heat out on the SEMA sub a couple of times, and that's uncomfortable. You can't sit out. You can't be in that for very long. You have to go get in your truck and cool off. And those old houses didn't have air conditioning in signal cabins back then. I had that territory from 97 until 2000. But yeah, back to some of the stuff I'm going to do. Someone just, let me see. One of those things like 10 things you need to know about rail fanning on the Tehachapi. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. But let's see here. This is, you can't really see that. Train at Tina's, 1300. Something just came up on my calendar. I have no idea. But this is, I don't know, probably 50 things that I want to do. And mentioned this on the last live stream I did. I think most of these are ideas that, or many of these are ideas that you folks have given me. And I have some pretty interesting stuff coming up, I think. fishing. Best part, Bernard Bunny said, yeah, the best thing about working on the NWP was the steelhead fishing. We never had anywhere to fish anywhere I worked. Tehachapi Creek, which is below where the derailment is usually dry. And this year, after all the rains and everything, I don't think it ever got more than about 10 feet wide and about a foot deep. But one of the reasons that it took so long to get the derailment cleanup started was because the Department of Fish and Game, who oversees that, it's considered a watershed for some reason. There hadn't been a fish in Tehachapi Creek and who knows how long. And but they said, because of the wildlife, now that's all a wildlife corridor. That has all been sold to a nature conservancy. But so they had to get involved and they had to get permits. The Hulcher had to get permits from the Department of Fish and Game and from the Nature Conservancy to actually do what they were going to do down there. Obviously, the thieves and vandals didn't get those permits. James Cotter. Hello, James. Welcome. We are in a high rail vehicle. Do you have to have special training for that? Yes, you have to get certification to operate high rail vehicles of any kind, whether it's a pickup, a big truck, or a piece of on-track equipment, and they all have different speeds and different things that you have to. They're all operated in different manners. They have different maximum speed limits, and that's all set out in the special signal instructions. This is the book that tells you how you have to put trains together, and what kind of cars can be used next to each other. And it's got a ton of information. And one of the things it talks about in there is and the speed limit stuff is also in the GCOR, the General Code of Operating Rules, and but it's in there too. But yeah, you have to qualify. You have to get your certification done every year. You have to make sure that you have to take tests. I don't think it's on rail tests, but you have to take tests to keep your certification current. But anyway, some of the stuff that, let me see. There are now right now there are 2 bed and breakfasts in Tehachapi that overlook the railroads. Quintessentials, which is on Burton's Curve, just above the Tehachapi Loop, very popular place. Then there is Mike and Cheryl Butters' place, which I can't remember what it's called, but it sits up above Cable, and it's where one of the live train cams is. Mike and Cheryl Butters, for those of you who watch the live train cams, they are the ones who started this, and they are the operators of all, what are there, 5 live train cams on the mountain now. See, Mojave, Tehachapi, Cable, Waylon, and Edison. Yeah. So they operate all of those, and they come up with the funding for all of that, and they're responsible. They do all the maintenance and everything on that. But they have a really nice bed and breakfast at their place that overlooks Cable. It's pretty pricey, I understand, but it's a beautiful place. And just on the next point over from them, overlooking Cable, guy, I don't know who this person is, but he's got a old Union Pacific center cupola caboose that is going to be a bed and breakfast when he's done with that. I have no idea what that'll cost either, but I am going to plan on doing one of the videos, all 3 of those bed and breakfasts, and do a little piece of my videos, plug them a little bit, and show everybody what's available up there if they're interested in doing it. Barstow has one. Barstow has one what? Oh, rail cam. Yeah, that Butters aren't involved. I mean, there are rail cams all over the place. I go through, when I'm going through the homepage on YouTube looking for something to watch, sometimes I see them all over the place, and it's not something that I really watch. I use the train cams if I can't get hold of, if I'm out shooting videos and I can't get hold of my connections. I have 2 guys that I can call and find out what's going on. But if I can't get hold of either one of them for some reason, I will pull up the train cams, because you can go back. You can go back like 12 hours on them. But I'll go back an hour and see if any trains have gone by those train cams that are headed my way. So that's about the only time I really use them. King Cafe. King Cafe is a cool place to eat. Their food's not awesome, but it's good. It's a fun place. The staff there are really cool and friendly, and it's a neat little place to eat, and it's not generally crowded. Every once in a while, it's become a pretty popular place on Saturday mornings for around the 10 o'clock-ish time for motorcycle riders. Sometimes I drive by it, and there are literally 20 or 30 bikes outside, and I don't even stop. I just go ahead and go up Tehachapi and grab a bite up there at Henry's or the Village Grill or one of the restaurants in Tehachapi. But yeah, King Cafe is a cool place to eat. And I remember it's been there for forever. And we used to, it was pretty scungy back in the old days, and we would go in there and get a bottle or a can of soda pop. But there was a time I wouldn't have eaten anything that came out of that place. But it's really nice now. It's nice and clean, and I highly recommend it if you're in the area. They have a thing I get a lot. They have really good chorizo. I will tell you that. But they have a thing called the Cowboy Benedict. Some places call them different, scramble this or a pile, where the biscuits and gravy and eggs and whatever meat you want all piled on top. Yummy. Did SP ever have anything to do with UP? No, not really. But they had joint track rights in certain places, but as far as I know, they were never tied together. I'm not really wrapping it up just yet. I still have some stuff I want to talk about, but yeah, if you want to plug somebody, go ahead. You're already on my channel, so that's the plug here. Just make sure you tell your friends about it. I have a couple of those of you who saw my correction video on tunnels 12 and 13, and going over a couple of the history books I have. I figured out that I had made a mistake in the old original line at Illman. I'm going to do a correction video on that, and then it was also pointed out to me that there was an issue with Bina with the milepost that changed in 1918 or something like that, which I was completely unaware of. None of the books I have mentioned that, but it was pointed out to me by someone, which is why my Bina in the stations and depots one I did way back when, that, as I remember going out there thinking, man, this is a weird place to have had a station, and that was why. The Cyril's Tunnel, I want to go do a piece on that, which is Tunnel 29, which is the tunnel that's a little over a mile long out at the end of the Lone Pine Branch. The Trona Railroad, at some point I want to get out there. It's kind of a drive, not a lot. It's, I don't know, 2.5 hours to get out to Trona. But I do know someone who works on the Trona Railroad, so I have their call on schedule. That doesn't mean that's when they're going to leave, but I can do that. Want to go out and get some stuff at Kelso and out on the SEMA. Piece on the 1932 flood, a piece on the 83 flood, end of train devices. There are a few things I've got going. I've got a ton of ideas. Now I just need to buckle down. Buckle down and get them done. Hey, Vaughn, what's going on, buddy? Vaughn, at the general meeting in March, Mike and Cheryl Butters did a presentation on the history of their train cams, and they said they want to put one up on the other side of the freeway, on the north side of the canyon, where they can see all 4 of the tunnels there, 14, 15, 16, and 17. But they have to get permits and all that stuff to get that and find some place to put it, because that's there's not much access up there. And they did say that the Nature Conservancy and the BLM, they'd have to get permission from both of them. She said they don't seem to have a problem with it. But so yeah, they might get another one up there. That's the only one that they talked about, though. Yeah, Brian, the Cyril's Tunnel caught on fire in 1982, and when they built the original Lone Pine Branch, that they did that roadbed up over the top so they could start using it while they were building the tunnel. And then when the tunnel was shut because of the fire, that roadbed was still in good condition. So they just went up, threw some ties down, and they went north or west, or east, I'm sorry, of the tunnel up on the branch, and pulled all the rail up to go over the El Paso Mountains there. And that was, I don't know, I can't remember how long it took. A couple of months for them to get it reopened. The fire wouldn't go out. They sealed it up. They couldn't get it out, so they sealed it up for a week or something, and to smother it, when they opened it back up, it caught on fire again. So they sealed it up again, drilled holes into it from the top, and pumped foam into it, and then kept doing temperature readings of it, and it finally went out. I don't remember exactly how long now, but that's part of the history thing I'll do, and I'll have all that information. But that was one of the reasons that after the fire, the Lone Pine Branch beyond Cyril's yard was abandoned, and that was one of the things SP said, well, we pulled up all the rail and we can't afford to go put it back, and they didn't have any business. So the whatever it's what is it, FRA, I guess, whoever they petitioned to abandon lines, allow them to abandon it. Yeah, Joe 99. Yeah, that's one of the things the Butters talked about is that it's, the price is involved, but they have a lot of people that donate to them. In one case, they had someone who donated. I think it was in the case of maybe the maybe the Mojave. Yeah, it was the Mojave camp. Someone donated all the equipment. They had someone that bought all the equipment to set it up with for them, and all they had to do was put it up. SJVR rail fan. I don't know. SJVR, I don't know where they are right now. They're 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. They're probably still in their still wherever they spent the night. I came by out on the west side of town over Stockdale Highway yesterday, coming back from playing golf, and that train was parked there at Stockdale Highway. I don't know locomotives by number, on any railroad, especially on SJVR. I don't know where the 3818 is. Crazy train update. That's another thing I'm going to do when it cools off. Is I'm going to do a piece on the California high-speed rail, where it is, where it's never going to end up being, in my opinion, and what I think about it, which is probably going to ruffle some people's feathers, but that's all right. It's my channel. Yeah, it's yeah, I see that. I read about that Anaheim to Vegas train. I'll believe it when I see it. That's something that will have to be privately funded, and yeah, that's not something that the government is going to get involved in like they have in the California high-speed rail. That's going to be pretty much a party train, and maybe Vegas will want to throw some money at it. I doubt if Anaheim cares about it, but I don't know. We'll see. If they build it, I'll drive to one point or the I'll drive to Anaheim and ride it to Vegas and back and see what happens. Also, for those of you in Southern California, I think it's September 9th and 10th, that 9th and 10th, they're having the big train fest at LA Union Station, downtown in Los Angeles. And my wife and I are actually going to go to that. We're going to drive down to Santa Clarita and get on the Metrolink and take it down to the station. But I've never been to anything like that. But sounds like something to make a good video. But if you want to check it out, put it on your calendar. Yeah, the Tasby Depot Museum, Geo 99, they have a camera on that too, but that is entirely funded by the Butters and operated. That depot has nothing to do with that other than the fact that they told them they could put that camera there. People ask me every once in a while about it, and the depot museum has absolutely nothing to do with it. Fax buses. I'm SJVR rail fan. I don't even know what a fax bus is. So no, I haven't caught one. I want to give a shout out to my patrons and the PayPal people who helped me out. I just got a couple of new patrons the other day. I don't have a lot, but every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. I think I have 17 patrons or 18 patrons now, and that's really cool. You can help me out at patreon.com/MarkClayMcGowan or PayPal.me/MotoPoet59. I put those links up, those URLs up in all my videos, and anything at all helps. Gas has gone up here in California. Hadn't gone up in a few weeks, but it jumped up about 20 cents a gallon here recently, and so that's the biggest expense I have is gas, and I go through a lot of it because none of this stuff is right next door to me. Um, I'm always open to taking subscribers out and showing them some of these places. But in May and in June, I got completely overwhelmed. Everybody wanted to, especially May, everybody wanted to go out in May. And I had to put a few people off that ended up not being able to come back at a different time, and move some people around. And so if, and one of the things that happened then was people just telling me at the last minute they were going to be here. So if you know you're going to be here and you want to do something like that, let me know as far ahead of time as you can if you have your plans firmed up, and we can make that work. But if you wait till the week before or something, I might not be able. That's the only time that's ever happened. But I don't know. As the channel grows, I get more and more people who want to do that. I talked about that. Yeah, Brian, as I've said in so many videos, I am not conversant with locomotive types. If it wasn't for my subscribers that I take out with me and that tell me these kinds of things, like I said, when I did the video about the difference between AC and DC locomotives, I honestly didn't even know we had both types. I really didn't. As a signal guy on the ground, I didn't need that information. I didn't need operating information, and I never really got into it until I started my channel and people started asking me questions and giving me answers. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Brian, I have a 2008 KTM 450 XCR dual sport. The issue so far with me is that every time that I have thought about doing it, it's either been too hot or I've just been too busy doing other things. And that's something that I can't ride that bike all the way out there because I have knobbies on it. I'm not going to put street tires on it. And obviously I can't ride it all the way out. It's a long way. And I have friends in Trona and I have friends in Mojave where I could park my truck and unload the bike, but I'm very leery of parking my truck out in the middle of the desert and taking off on my bike. When my grandson and I go out to Cache Creek and ride, I don't even like doing it there. And there's other people around generally in motorhomes and stuff. But yeah, when I do the Cyril's Tunnel thing, I'm going to have to do that because there are places you just can't access in a vehicle, in a four-wheel vehicle anymore. Not even a side-by-side, probably. Don Cheeto, SP 2998 Fresno Yard Master. Are you saying, did you used to be a yard master up there? I've been up in that. I never thought about it when I was toward the end, when I was still working up there. I hadn't had my channel very long while I was still working in that area. And I wish I would have gone up in the tower and shot some video from up there of them doing their switching. That's one of the places where they use remote control locomotives, and they also use manned ones, but they do a lot of work up there. I wish I would have caught that, but I didn't. Someone asked me to do a piece on the good and the bad aspects of retirement, so that'll come up. I'll talk a little bit about it. One of the great aspects of retirement is I don't have to go to work. And one of the bad aspects of it is I don't get overtime. I have a really good pension. I'm not complaining, but it was nice to get overtime because I was one of those people who didn't work a lot of overtime, but I could have worked almost as much as I would have wanted had I wanted to. And it was nice if you knew you were going, getting ready to go on a vacation, you could just plug in some overtime and start taking some calls and make plenty of money to do it. Now I just have to do that myself. One of the things, the last thing that I have written down and talk about is the importance of kids. Vaughn What's his Mr. Railfan Vaughn is a little buddy of mine. He lives up in Tehachapi. Vaughn, if you're still on here, what are you, 12? But there are a lot of kids that are that age that are rail fans. They would like to have a career with the railroad. They're into model railroading. And I think it's so important that we have young people that carry these traditions on. I'm trying to get the board into Ashby. I have one of the young guys up there who's probably 13 or 14 now, who's interested in becoming like a docent at the museum. And this kid knows a lot of history and stuff, and they're hum-hawing around, no, the insurance. And we had a guy come in and said, no, the insurance isn't it. But I'm trying to get the board to start letting some of these young people work with us at the museum. I told them, I'm talking about cutting them loose, but work side by side with some of the, with me or one of the other docents until they get used to the way things go. This one guy, his grandpa comes out with him, and he said, I'll stay here all day. If that's an issue, I'll just hang out, and and I'll be one of his guardians will be with him. But I think it's important that kids remain involved in this. I think it's really cool. Somebody has to carry this on. Like I told the guys at the museum when I brought it up at one of the general meetings. Let's see a show of hands of everybody in here who's under 60, and only like 2 people out of the whole room. We got to start getting young people involved in this, and or the museum won't survive. So, yes, people benefit from scouting. We had a Boy Scout group come in sometime back, and there were some girls in it, which confused me. I'm old school. I'm OG. And I was talking to one of the dads, and he said, yeah, the reason that these girls come to the Boy Scouts is because the Boy Scouts do cool things that the Girl Scouts don't do. And he started telling me some things. I said, you know what, that makes sense. Not all girls want to be girly and do things that are historically more girl things that girls would do. They want to go climb cliffs and chop wood, do whatever. And yeah, it made sense. But yeah, they enjoyed the visit to the depot though. And we're another thing at Tehachapi Depot. I'm trying to get the people there to start putting in more interactive things that kids can, adults too, but for the most part, get things that the kids can do, buttons they can push. We have the telegraph thing and the telegraph up in the back and the simulated telegraph at the agent's desk and a locomotive bell you can ring and stuff like that. But it's important to get kids involved at museums and history. If you have kids, take them to museums. I took my kids to museums when they were young, and they always seem to enjoy it. None of my kids are history geeks the way I am because of it, but they understand history, and I think it's important that parents and grandparents take their kids to museums and get them interested in history, whether it's railroad history or regional or whatever. I think it's important. Well, I'm kind of bummed out that not very many people showed up, but I want to thank everyone who did show up. I appreciate it. I appreciate every one of you, the comments that you make on the channel, the donations you help with, just watching. I really appreciate it. I really do. I never thought in my wildest dreams when I started this channel that I would ever have 15,000 subscribers. I wasn't ever sure I'd have any subscribers. I just thought that, maybe, my daughter was absolutely certain that I was doing things people would want to see. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, it was my wife's idea for me to start narrating videos and telling these goofy stories and stuff. And, when I started the channel, it was going to be how things work. That was my thing, but it has evolved into what it is today. And I appreciate everybody checking it out. Yeah, Brian, that's something that I can talk to the board guys about, the board members about, and that's something that would have to be coordinated with them, the city, and because the city owns the depot, the Friends of the Depot operate it, so all these permissions have to be granted. But I'm sure it's nothing, just formalities actually, and they'd have to coordinate with the local scoutmasters or whatever their title is these days. But yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. All right, well, as I always say, keep shooting me the ideas. Drop them in the comments on the videos. Shoot me an email, motopoet59@gmail.com. Like, share, subscribe, share this with your friends. Anybody you bump into out rail fanning, tell them, hey, watch this channel. So anyway, I appreciate you folks who, more cowbell. I appreciate everybody giving the time up on a Saturday morning to come and visit with me. And thank you again for the subscriptions and the comments and the likes and all that stuff, and for showing up. All right, everybody. We'll see you. I have the next video coming up will be Tuesday, and it's gonna be about the Tulare Lake watershed. I didn't go up on the river or anything. I just went out to the newly formed Tulare Lake, which is an ancient lake bed that filled up because of all the rain. It's pretty cool. All right, everyone, take care, and we will see you on the channel.